Hello everyone, it's Andrew from Gem TCG here, and in today's video I will be talking about whether or not you should be selling on TCGPlayer or eBay. Lately I've been getting a lot of questions on which one is better to sell on and if people should prioritize one over the other. So I will kind of break that down for you in this video, and hopefully by the end of the video you will know which one you should sell on and for what reasons, and which products sell best on different platforms. And also, if you need help starting and growing your TCGPlayer or eBay stores, I have a Patreon where I will directly help you with that, and the link is in the description of this video. So let's get started. So there are multiple different reasons for why TCGPlayer might be better than eBay, or eBay might be better than TCGPlayer. So I'm gonna kind of compare all of the different factors and what I look at for the two platforms, because you can definitely get more value when prioritizing one platform over the other. And knowing how to use both platforms simultaneously will be key for your store to grow and for your business to grow altogether. So one major thing is pricing. On TCGPlayer, you are really competing on the price of your items. So if you have the cheapest card listed, you will most likely sell before anyone else. And the number one way to compete with other sellers on TCGPlayer is to be listing it at a lower price than them, or listing it at or below market price. This can be good if you're just starting off and you want to get some practice kind of selling cards or learning the market and learning what sells best, because you just list it it tells you the price and you list it at that price. So it's pretty simple and easy. And then compared to eBay, you have to make your own pricing. And typically the way you will compete with other sellers on eBay is with pricing or with brand authority, which I will talk about later. But you simply just don't have to compete on pricing with eBay, because like my store, I could sell stuff for 30% higher than market price with no problem. And if I were to do that on TCGPlayer, it simply would not sell, or it would take a lot longer for it to sell, for me to sell something at 30% above market price, because everyone's competing for that lowest price available or that direct buy box if you're a direct seller. So in terms of being able to sell cards at a higher price, eBay is the way to go, because you can get a lot more value and sell stuff for a lot higher on eBay compared to TCGPlayer. The next important thing is sale volume. And what I mean by that is which platform will allow you to sell more cards in a shorter amount of time. And from my experience, I've been able to sell a lot more volume of cards on TCGPlayer compared to eBay when I was first starting off. And this is because it's pretty easy for people to buy multiple quantities of cards on TCGPlayer, since they have that cart optimizer for customers. And another reason is because I was simply selling a lot cheaper cards. So it's easier for someone to buy like 20 cards that are worth 50 cents each compared to buying 20 cards that are worth $20 each. So you can definitely sell a lot more cards on TCGPlayer, but the pricing of those cards is obviously going to be a lot lower. And you'll also be able to list a lot more cards on TCGPlayer, which I will get into next, compared to eBay, which will allow you to sell more volume. And then speaking of listing cards, listing on TCGPlayer, you could probably do upwards of 1,000 cards per day if you just list like a bunch of cards within one set and use the pricing page to kind of bulk list cards, or even with their new scanning tool that you can do for Pokemon, Magic, and Yu-Gi-Oh! Whereas eBay, you kind of have to take a picture, create a new listing, upload the picture, set the price, put the condition, the description, item specifics. There's a lot more steps with listing cards on eBay compared to TCGPlayer. Whereas TCGPlayer, you just need condition, you can pre-fill the market price and set your quantity, and that's it. And then you just store it away, have it ready for the sale eventually. So when it comes to being able to list cards at a quicker rate, TCGPlayer does beat eBay for that. And of course, that does have its limitations, because you cannot list certain cards on TCGPlayer, like a autographed card or an error card that's like, you have to sell kind of the default cards, if that makes sense. But of course, that is like 99% of the cards on the market. But if you have like rare one-off cards, you can't sell those on TCGPlayer because it just doesn't work that way since there are set listings. Next is the shipping. So on TCGPlayer, you kind of have to be in charge of your own shipping practices. They don't offer a shipping service like eBay does, so you have to use a stamp or use maybe Pirate Ship for your shipping labels or one of those other shipping platforms. So that does add an extra step and process level, like that takes more time. Because for me, I use stamps and Pirate Ship. So the shipping process takes me a lot longer per package than it does for eBay, since I have to do the extra step for the labels and the stamps. Whereas on eBay, they provide you the labels, they let you print them all out all at once, and it marks it as shipped automatically as soon as you print the label, which helps save a lot of time and money too, because the shipping prices on eBay are very cheap and cheaper than like what the post office would charge you. So that's good. And I would say in terms of shipping, eBay is definitely number one. And next we'll look at the kind of branding that you will get from both platforms. So on TCGPlayer, of course, having feedback and having sales is important. That's important on any marketplace that you'll sell on. But if you have like, as long as you have above like 90% feedback and more than 10 sales, you will make sales no matter what if you are competing on price. Like there are many times when I've bought on TCGPlayer and I'll buy from someone with like 5 feedback, even just because they have a lower price than someone that might have 1,000 feedback. And I know that's riskier on my end, but at the end of the day, they're all selling the same card, and for the most part, a near mint card is near mint, unless they're like purposely scamming or trying to take advantage. But on TCGPlayer, it just simply doesn't matter about like branding and all that, because you're just competing on price and you're not really competing on anything else. Customer service is kind of not the best on TCGPlayer. Like I've had many experiences with people with like 50,000 feedback and they just kind of brush you off when you have an issue, because they know that like they really don't have to provide the best customer service because the ratings don't matter that much, which kind of hurts you as a seller, because the buyers will see that and they'll think like, why go for someone that's a higher feedback if they're just going to do that? I'd rather just pay a lower price. Whereas on eBay, I will admit, when I first started off, having a less feedback, less credibility, I guess, did hurt my sales overall, because like it's hard to sell stuff when you don't have a lot of feedback on eBay. But now that I have over 5,700 feedback with 99.2% positive rating, I am able to sell cards at a lot higher price. I attract a lot more better sellers or better buyers, and eBay also promotes your listings more than someone that's just starting off or someone with like 10 feedback. And that helps out a lot, because if you search something and you'll notice that like the top few listings are people with a lot of feedback, even if their listing quality isn't the best, they will simply rank higher because they have a higher feedback score than someone else. So in terms of branding and like having a storefront with credibility, eBay is number one in my opinion. And of course, you should be aiming for high feedback on any marketplace that you sell on. But in terms of the return on that feedback, eBay will be the higher or the better one, I guess. And next, let's compare the customers. So overall, customers are pretty similar on both platforms, but you will notice that because TCGPlayer has people competing for price and most customers will be trying to find the best deal on TCGPlayer rather than like looking elsewhere for like a better card, you tend to get a lot of people that are very peculiar or like complain about like really small details. Like a lot of times if I'll sell something for like a 50-cent card, I'll mark it as lightly played, and then they'll say there's like a one extra whitening that they would consider moderately played. They would request like a full refund rather than try to get any other solution. So I've definitely had those experiences a lot more than I have on eBay, because on eBay, you can provide them a return label like very easily and they can send it back for a full refund. And most times when people are buying from you on eBay, they trust your store and they like your store, so they won't be as picky, I guess. And since they have the pictures of the cards on eBay, they know what they're getting beforehand. So you don't run into those issues a lot. But overall, I have had better experiences with customers on eBay compared to TCGPlayer. And I know that's not a popular claim because I know a lot of people think that buyers on eBay are worse or they're like more rude or scamming or something like that. But from my experience, the customers on eBay have always been very nice, and always very nice, but like for the most part, they were very nice and understanding, I guess. And now that I've talked about like what different criteria is important for each marketplace, let's look at what products are best to sell on each marketplace. So to put it simply, the cards that you're going to want to sell on TCGPlayer are anything that's in the competitive market. So like a popular trainer card, like the Night Stretcher or Earthen Vessel, like something that people use in decks to play in tournaments. They will pay a lot higher price for that. And those are best to sell on TCGPlayer because the people that are building their decks are often buying their cards from TCGPlayer rather than eBay. And then another way or another good product to sell on TCGPlayer would be older cards that are below $1. And what I mean by older is like Sun and Moon to XY era. I have a lot of Sun and Moon and XY era cards listed on TCGPlayer compared rather than on eBay because these cards are like 30 cents or like 40 cents and they will sell pretty common on TCGPlayer. But if I were to list them on eBay, they would not sell as quick. And it's not worth it for me to list them on eBay when they're already like 40 cents on TCGPlayer. And what you'll often find is a lot of these cards from like the older era sometimes have like really expensive market prices. Like if you look at the like a Lost Thunder Nihilego or however you pronounce that card, I think it's like $10 and it's just a regular hollow rare. But if you were to see that card, you would think, oh, it's just a bulk hollow card. And you wouldn't even expect that it's worth anything. But since when you're listing cards on TCGPlayer, you see the market price while you're putting in the inventory, you will realize like how expensive some of these cards are. And over time, you'll kind of realize what types of cards are more expensive on TCGPlayer or have a high market price. And it'll make you a lot better seller because you'll be a lot quicker with that. And another good type of item to sell on TCG is like the miscellaneous items, like a blister exclusive or a Cosmos hollow rare, like some of those weird items that people don't typically search for, but they would see on TCGPlayer if they're looking. And then also, speaking of the competitive side, competitive ultra rares are very good to sell on TCGPlayer. Like, for example, the Dragapult EX card, it's typically considered just a bulk card if you didn't know. But on TCGPlayer, it's like a $6 card. So if you were to buy that card for 35 cents and then sell it for $6 on TCGPlayer, that's a very big return. So always try to look for cards like that to sell on TCGPlayer. And then on eBay, basically everything else you'll want to list on eBay. Ultra rares, hollow rares, alt art, secret rares, anything of value above 50 cents, I would list on TCGPlayer or on eBay because one, you could list it for a lot higher than market price. You will establish a bigger brand by selling on eBay, which will lead to a lot more long-term results down the line. And once you have items listed on eBay, you could just go in that listing and then update the quantity. So you don't have to like make a brand new listing each time you get a card if you have a duplicate of it. Like in my store, I list vintage cards, like common, uncommon, vintage, rares, hollows, secret rares, reverse hollows, and like basically everything you can think of that I didn't mention for the TCGPlayer section, I would list on eBay. And over the past 2 years, it's helped a lot to do that method because I've been making a lot more sales there and it's grown my store a lot. But yeah, to conclude this video, basically you'll want to list competitive cards on TCGPlayer and everything else on eBay. And overall, I would say eBay is the better place to sell. You need to have both in your store, like with your business, in order to succeed, because you'll want to sell the competitive on TCGPlayer and then everything else on eBay, because competitive cards, sure, they will sell on eBay, but it's a lot quicker to sell it on TCGPlayer, and you'll make a lot more sales that way. But yeah, I hope you all enjoyed this video, and I hope it kind of helped you navigate like which one to use and which one to prioritize for different types of cards. And if you need more help, of course, I do have the Patreon, so feel free to join that if you want. And I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye.